What is up, YouTube? I hope we are all doing great. Today we are taking a look at a few weapons that I want to recommend for those that are really trying to farm high damage games. My recommendations today are not going to be that typical R301 with the flatline. Just use those two guns. No, we are going to do something different today. We're going to show a little bit of love to guns that are less used, in my mind at least. You might be using these guns, but I do find a lot of people are not running these guns. And I figured I just want to kind of spread the word on some different weapons. As we break the midpoint in seasons of Apex Legends, a lot of players are leaving the game because they get bored with it. I'm really just trying to kind of give you guys some ideas as to how you can play the game in different ways. And if you want to farm those higher damage badges, then I think this video will help you out quite a bit. I also firmly believe that using different weapons will just make you a better player. And that reason alone, I think, is enough for you to try these weapons out today. So we are all about farming damage in this video. I'm not really going to be prioritizing kills. Just keep that in mind. If you want to farm higher damage games, the very first tip I can give you is to always finish your knocked opponents. That's a free 100 damage. It doesn't even have to be your knocked opponent. Just finish the knocked enemy. That's 100 damage. If you're getting 5 or 6 kills a game, you could be getting another 500 to 600 damage on enemies just from them being knocked. So make sure you're doing this. And then the only other tip I can really give you is to try out Rampart. 20% more damage to those amped walls will stack up quite a bit, and it will help you out when you are doing 1-on-3s or 1-on-2s. So definitely don't sleep on Rampart and those amped walls if you are trying to get higher damage games. And honestly, it kind of comes down to you just have to shoot everything. And my weapons today are definitely going to be helping you out with shooting everything at longer ranges and medium ranges and even close range in some aspects. But definitely make sure you are tagging all the enemies if you can. We have 4 recommendations today, so let's kick it off with the 30-30 marksman rifle. Love it or hate it, seems to be the only 2 camps for repeater, and honestly, I'm probably in the middle of the pack right now. Prior to the little repeater buff of the velocity and that little reload speed that it got back in, I think, the previous season, I think the 30-30 was pretty much garbage, but right now it is not terrible. I will say the charge feature is pretty unnecessary to use this weapon, and I don't think you really need to prioritize charging up the shots every time. But that being said, any extra charge damage you are going to be doing is nice, and a nice little bonus will add up over the course of your game. Damage-wise, that 30-30 is solid, and it does just as much damage as you would expect from a rifle with this type of fire rate. It shoots slower than a G7, but it shoots faster than something like a longbow. So the damage is in between those, and it's 57 to the body for a charge shot and 42 to the body for a no charge shot. This is actually pretty important. This means if you're opening a fight, you're probably going to be charging it up to max. You'll be doing 57, then you're going to follow up with 42. And this is going to be almost 100 damage, which is pretty much cutting someone's health in half just by doing 2 shots. And honestly, I think this is probably the more underrated aspect of this weapon. I often talk about capitalizing opportunities in Apex, and I think the 30-30 is probably one of the better guns from my list in terms of the ability to do damage and open up those opportunities. That being said, we are really just talking about damage farming with the 30-30, and we're not really talking about kills. So you do not really need to make sure that you are making a push off of doing 100 damage with the 30-30 if you are going for the higher damage games. I think the 30 provides a good mix between the amount of damage that you can do and the amount of ammo that you need to carry. You do not need as much ammo as something like a G7, but you will need more ammo than something like a sniper rifle like the longbow. Since the 30-30 is more or less a single shot weapon, you can deal out a decent amount of damage without the need to loot death boxes, which means that 240 rounds that maybe you're taking will last you quite some time and do a lot of damage if you are hitting shots. Finally, the 30-30 is pretty forgiving. Faster fire rate means you will be able to connect more easily than something like the Sentinel, but not quite as easily as something like the G7. But on the other side of things, I don't think it's as hard to use as some of the sniper rifles. The 30-30 is a solid damage farming weapon. It kind of pains me to say that because I was so hard on it last season, but again, it was that buff that really made it come into a good limelight, and I think it's solid right now if you do want to farm damage. I don't think it's a meta weapon by any means, but I think the 30-30 on my list is going to be the most balanced warrior of the bunch. The second weapon for us to talk about is going to be the 30-30's little brother, the G7 Scout. I personally find this light ammo gun to be the most reliable and well-rounded of probably every gun on this list. If you want something that is very forgiving, this is absolutely the gun you should be picking up. It's not quite as hard to use as a sniper, but it's not as easy to use as something like an assault rifle. It's really right in the middle, and I find that it's pretty well balanced. The G7 for me has been a pretty solid gun for the past couple seasons. Much like the 30, opening with a double shot is super nice, and it's something that will melt opponents if you can get a headshot in there. The G7 does 34 to the body, which is decent, but not incredible, but it is as expected for this type of gun. The big thing for me with the G7 is the forgiveness of it. This does mean a few things for me. The base magazine size is 10, which is absolutely solid for this type of weapon. And because of this, it doesn't really need a magazine, although it will help out a little bit. A gray mag brings it up to 15, which is a pretty ridiculous 50% magazine size increase just from a level 1 mag. I do not believe any other gun in the game kind of works this way. I also find that a barrel stabilizer and even really any of the attachments aren't really necessary on this gun, although something I do want is going to be an optic, a 1x or even up to like a 2 to 4, all works pretty well, and it feels pretty natural to have that optic on this weapon. For me, the iron sights with the G7 just don't work. I'm not sure what it is. I don't know if it's a bullet velocity thing, but I just cannot use the G7 without any sort of optic. Unlike the 30-30, the G7's fire rate for me really means missing shots isn't as penalizing as a sniper, and that bullet velocity is a little bit better than the 30-30, in my opinion, of course. Ammo is probably the only drawback of this gun. It will require more ammo to deal out more damage than something like its companion weapons, but light ammo is super common. It's easy to come by, which makes it a non-issue for me in my book. The G7 is my forgiveness king, and out of anything on this list, I think this is the weapon you may want to pick up first if you are trying to grind those higher damage games, because again, it is very forgiving. If you are enjoying this video, be sure to hit that like button. It does mean a lot to me. And also hop over to Twitch where we do stream. I love to answer any of your questions over there, and I would love to chat with you. Next is actually not going to be a single shotgun, but it's going to be the new weapon, the Rampage. I was very hesitant on whether or not I really wanted to include this weapon on this list because the Rampage kind of isn't like all the other weapons that we have on here. But if you are not aware, the Rampage is absolutely a decimation at medium range, which is really what I'm looking for here. I want to be doing the maximum amount of damage at the mid to longer ranges without really having to worry about people pushing me. Ultimately, its slower fire rate is the only reason why I did put it on this list, because it kind of does act more like a G7 or 30-30, even though it is fully auto. The Rampage is also probably the best weapon on this list, and I think the Rampage is going to be the most reliable in terms of the mid-range beamer. There isn't really too much to say about this gun. The recoil is manageable due to that slow fire rate, and its magazine size is absolutely just absurd for an auto weapon. I know it's a light machine gun. I'm kind of expecting them to nerf the magazine size. I think it's just a little bit too much right now. The Rampage has one big thing going for it. It's throwing that thermite on this weapon, and it's just absolutely wild if you do this. The time to kill actually becomes usable in the close range and even at the medium ranges, of course. But without a thermite, I do find that the close range is pretty lackluster, and it has a very slow time to kill in the close range compared to some of the other weapons like shotguns or the SMGs. For me, though, because you need thermites, the ammo control isn't going to be the greatest because you got to use inventory spots on other things like those thermites if you do want to be competitive in the close range. If you are not worried about the close range, you can forego the thermites and just stack up on heavy ammo, which even again, it's not the greatest compared to something like a single shot weapon. But overall, I do think the Rampage is a solid pickup, and it is worthy of being on this list because it does allow you to just farm a lot of damage very easily at the mid range. It's not as good at the longer ranges, in my opinion, though. Something like the G7 and the 30-30, I can shoot those a little bit longer than the Rampage and have a little bit more success. So that is something to keep in mind. If you are really trying to beam people across map, the Rampage might not be for you. But I did want to put the Rampage on this list because it is a very reliable weapon, and it's probably the best gun out of all the guns on my list, even though it's not really what we are going for. I briefly want to throw in my honorable mention, which is going to be the Charge Rifle. I hate this thing personally. It's so annoying to get tapped by it. I got hit by 12 shots in a row in the head the other day, and I just fell over instantly. But I do want to bring attention to the Charge Rifle. The Charge Rifle is probably the easiest to use on this list since it is hit scan, and you can get small partial hits pretty much every time, which is very nice for consistent damage dealing. It's also just infuriatingly annoying, again, to have enemies have the shield cell every time at minimum, which does help you keep enemies off of you because they can't really push you because you're tagging them for like 20 to 80 every time, which is super kind of obnoxious. The Charge Rifle is only my honorable mention though because it just uses too much ammo. The magazine size is only 4, and the reload is actually very long compared to a lot of the other guns in the game. I feel like I had to run an R989 or another close range weapon with this weapon as well, because the Charge Rifle is just brutally awful at close ranges. It's something that I can never use in close range. I don't think really anyone can use it in close range, at least effectively. The Charge Rifle, I like to give it the nickname of the mosquito. It just keeps hitting you. You keep getting stung by it. It's really annoying. But give it a try if you want something that is very easy to use with a lot of little partial damage hits. And if you are connecting those full bursts with the Charge Rifle, it's going to do a lot of damage, but again, at the cost of ammo. And the final weapon on my list is going to be the longbow sniper rifle. I know for some people out there, the longbow is kind of hit or miss for them, but for me, the longbow has a lot of things going for it. And if you're not using the longbow, I think you should give it a try, especially if you are trying to farm higher damage games. A longbow with a purple magazine means 12 shots in a single mag, which is just so much damage if you are hitting shots This would be 720 damage to the body on a precision weapon, which at a base is so good for only 12 bullets. The body damage is only 60, which isn't insane, but it's not bad by any means. 60 damage to the body is actually very important. It means people need to pop 3 shield cells instead of 2 just to get back to full health, which does allow enemies to stay away from you a little bit longer because they do have to pop that extra shield cell, or they're going to have to use a battery. Either or, it's a good win for you. Second to this, it is a sniper rifle. The headshot multiplier is bigger than all the other type of weapons on my list right here, which means any sort of headshot will allow you to make a play off of it. And I find that even if you can't get a double headshot, you're probably going to drop your enemy, no problems at all, unless you are very end of late game and they have a red Evo. But even then, you're doing 202-ish damage if they have a decent helmet. And that's just absolutely insane to do in 2 shots from the longbow. Again, since this thing is a sniper, you can throw a sniper optic onto it, which means you can farm damage at much longer ranges than the other weapons on this list, because again, it is a sniper rifle. And in tandem with this, since it is a sniper, it's going to be taking sniper ammo, which for me, it's pretty easy to come by because enemies aren't really running it a lot of time, but this can be a double-edged sword. If you are in the late game and you are not able to find sniper ammo off of the ground, or if you are not running with a Loba, death boxes might not have sniper because a lot of people don't run them. So this is just something to be aware of. I like to make sure I am carrying a ton of sniper ammo from the early game to last me through the majority of the game. And if I am getting to end game, sometimes I'll have to swap off of the longbow because I just can't find sniper ammo. And I'm not going to just carry a weapon if it doesn't have ammo. For my secondary, I often like to run a shotgun, so again, I can just carry all that sniper ammo in the world. I don't need to worry about carrying something like thermites or carrying a few stacks of light ammo for something like an R99. I can just carry lots of sniper ammo, and again, I have a shotgun if someone is trying to get up and close and personal. The longbow is not as hard-hitting as something like the Sentinel, but that's just not our goal here. Our goal isn't to drop enemies. Our goal is to just farm damage off of them, and to get those high damage games, I think the longbow is going to be the most forgiving and the best overall damage dealer out of probably all of the weapons on this list. I know the Rampage might be the best gun, the G7 might be the most forgiving, but I think the longbow is going to be the king of damage farming weapons, so I absolutely give the longbow a try if you haven't used it recently. The longbow used to be insane back in like season 0 to season 2 days, but the longbow right now is something that you should be trying out if you do want to farm higher damage games. Of course, this is all just my opinion. If you want to run around with the R301 with a shotgun or the flatline with an SMG or something, then you can do that, you know, do whatever you want to do. I ain't going to tell you how to play the game. I'm just trying to give you some advice. This list, again, is really all about farming higher damage games with those weapons that you might not be considering. I just wanted to bring some limelight to a few of these guns out there. You know, you don't have to play the game every time to go maximum sweat mode. Some people think you do, but you really don't. At the end of the day, as long as you're having a good time, if you're trying to achieve something, then who cares? Let me know what guns you guys are picking up in the comments down below. I would love to hear it. I'm still running like the R301 with an EVA. Actually, I've been using the flatline a little bit more lately. I find the flatline kind of allows me to be a little bit more aggressive, but I would love to see what guns you are running to farm those higher damage games, so drop a comment down below. If you ever need someone to talk about with Apex Legends, join our community Discord. There's also usually people in there looking for others to play with, so if you want someone to play with that isn't randoms, because we know those randoms can be brutal, join the community Discord. I would love to see you in there. Links to that and everything else are in that description down below, guys. Till next time, peace out.